How's it going, guys? This is HKS, and this video is going to be a bit different. It's actually going to be an interview of the creators of the indie fighting game Battle Craze. Now, this is a game I've been playing for the last month or two, and I really enjoy it. It has awesome mechanics. It has very intriguing ideas. I even love the animation as well. Just very impromptu, very spur of the moment. I decided, hey, let me reach out to him and, let me see if I can talk to him about how, what was the process like of creating the game, of, making the characters, the voice acting, and the various things that you'll hear in this interview coming up. So just let me know if you enjoy it, and I hope you guys, watch all the way through and let me know what you think. Last thing is I also have a channel membership now for my YouTube channel. And if you want to help or support the channel in any way, then you can actually do that with the channel membership, to where you have access to early videos, you have access to membership shoutouts, as well as being able to request a video you want me to do, whether it's a tutorial or whether it's a fighting game you want me to play or review, then you can do that. So I hope you guys support me there and enjoy the video. Hey, I shout out to the podcasters who do this regularly, because they must be a master at IT.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. All right. So, like I was saying earlier, so the first question is going to be more of an icebreaking question anyway. But yeah, let's go ahead and begin. First off, should I refer to you guys as the Battle Craze team, and let me make sure I'm pronouncing your names or your monikers right in terms of, so is it Janice and Dr. Colexo or just Colexo?
Yeah, that one.
Generally, we refer to the development part of Battle Craze as just Team Craze.
Okay. Cool. All right. Also, I feel like for half of the roster, I'm going to ask how do you pronounce it. So forgive me if I butcher names. All right. So now let me get to question one. We've been here long enough. So, yeah, what is question one? No, I'm joking. I just want you guys to introduce yourself in terms of like, what do you do for Battle Craze, and from the development side, and kind of, just kind of introduce yourself just briefly.
Okay. I'm Janice Luciani Charlotte V, otherwise known as Full Moon Milk. I am the creative director and animator and illustrator and concept and lore head of Battle Craze.
I'm Dr. Colexo. I'm the programmer and I guess move list design for Battle Craze.
Nice. Sounds good. Okay, so the icebreaking question I was going to ask is, so the first question, it has to deal, or now to the second, but it has to deal with like the earliest online Battle Craze related post that I found online, which was on like the infamous Mugen Guild forums. So there, to my memory, you guys made a post on the full game development section talking about, a game called Battle Craze and how you were developing that. So obviously I have to talk about Mugen. So personally for me, I mean, Mugen was pivotal growing up when it came to just being like a paradise for fans of 2D fighting games. Obviously, when it comes to all the edits of the characters, the screen packs, the full games, the infamous creators, definitely for fans of 2D fighting games, that was like a launch pad, I would say. Long story short, Mugen was definitely influential for me, and it's cool that I see that the first Battle Craze related post I see is as like a Mugen full game before it's branched off to its own thing, I guess. So my question for you guys is, what is your history related to Mugen, and what impact did it have on you?
This goes quite a ways back, but I don't remember how I learned about Mugen, but I do remember back in like the mid to late 2000s, I was really engrossed in using my dad's Windows XP and going online surfing without too much parental restriction. So yeah. At some point I discovered Mugen, and I was just entranced with the idea of, like Homer Simpson versus Pyron from Darkstalkers.
Yes.
And I I think at a certain point I like dropped out of it a little bit, and then I like got back into it when I actually did download Mugen, a bunch of characters, and like got involved in like the YouTube scene by like some amateur Mugen YouTube creators, and that's how I got my YouTube account. And one thing really led to another, where Mugen led me to YouTube, and YouTube led me to Mugen Guild, where I would meet and talk to a bunch of people about it, get my like own little career going in making stages, meeting some interesting characters, and even if like playing Mugen kind of faded out for a while, I always still had like an interest in like fighting games on the side as well. Like even early on, I was playing like, you know, Smash Brothers, and then weird shit in my youth like Evil Zone and Bloody Roar Primal Fury on the GameCube.
Classic, yeah.
And like the game that really got me back into like fighting games was Marvel vs. Capcom 3 in 2010. And that's when like the idea of Battle Craze like came about, and it was always like kicking. But I didn't connect the two together of like the fighting game project and implementing it into the fighting game engine until being inspired by a few other Mugen full game creations like Fighters Histories Dynasties by T5 and Kamikaze, TMNT X Justice League by Kamikaze and the Channel 6 News Team, Shades of Manhattan by Sean Altley.
There you go, yeah.
That's when I realized I could do something with this sooner than I think. I don't have to be in my 50s and hoping that I'm a rich bureaucrat in order to be a part of a game company to do this.
Yeah.
There's also the fact that whenever when you look for somebody to make your game, you asked me, and that was the one thing that I experienced with was Mugen. So it was sort of just a given at that point.
Yeah.
I'm like remembering now my first exposure to Mugen, which makes me feel so fucking old, is somebody handed me a floppy disk in high school that contained a Mugen conversion of Brutal Paws of Fury. And they claim that they made it, and I'm not sure if I believe them or not. But Mugen has been sort of an off and on thing in my life, just because I did grow up playing a few fighting games and gradually getting more and more into them as time went on. And Mugen was always there to just be like, oh, let's download some characters that I like, or I actually discovered new things. I got into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure because of a Mugen conversion of Whole Horse. Like that sort of stuff.
Down to CC.
And yeah.
Go ahead.
And and it's I started started editing existing characters, just kind of tooling around with the engine, and eventually started to make my own characters. And I did a lot of independent releases that are mostly just like edits of other existing characters that are like joke creations of them, like using the sprites and creating a completely new character that have like kind of a humorous twist to them. And yeah, then Janice just asked me, hey, I'm making a game, do you want to code it for me? And I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll probably like get 10% of the way through that and then just forget about it. And then I started doing this for the last like 5 years, so that's where I'm at.
That was the perfect answer, and you guys keep answering other questions because literally the next question was, so what are your favorite creators for Mugen? I was going to ask like, what is your favorite full games for Mugen? And then you mentioned full games like Sean Alty, like Kamikaze, Shades of Manhattan, even Capcom versus the World. I can honestly see. I wanted to interrupt so bad, but I'm doing the interview because I can make a whole podcast on Mugen. Like that'll be separate, and we'd be here all day. But
the limitless source of humor and material, because it's just a bunch of passionate people just doing whatever it is that inspires them and inspiring other people to do the same.
Yeah, that's the key word, is passion. And that's why I see when I play Battle Craze, you see like, oh, this was made by people who like fighting games, before having the name or face to it. Go ahead.
We're kind of like knee deep in it, but I guess if I could give like a more expansive answer to like favorite Mugen authors, used to look up to Dr. Calexo, and then we just eventually became friends.
Oh, nice.
You just had mutual friends that they just ended up meeting together, and then I think we spent a lot of time playing like Drawful and Jackbox games together, and then this happened.
Nice.
Yeah, I would say other favorite Mugen authors would probably be a bunch of other guys that make original stuff like Borghi and the Blackheart characters. Even though that they're like severely outdated in my opinion, A. Dutsy's Rotten Core characters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird talking about this with people. Usually I'm the one using Mugen alone. So it's cool hearing like the creators' names and stuff. Like, normally you don't talk about that with people. But yeah, obviously. But sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, and shout outs to Aharon and 3Ha, who make like other like crazy character ideas like Iron Fist Ryu based off of that Ultimate Marvel 3 ending, and Corpse based off of a King of Fighters 98 stage cameo.
Oh wow, I didn't know that part. But I have all those characters on my movie. Huron is dude, I love his character. Go ahead. Well, actually, maybe I should go to the next question. Like I said, we'll be here all day. So
Yeah,
go for it.
Now we'll actually talk about Battle Craze.
Okay.
So and it'll deal with like the storylines. So the storylines per character, just from playing it, are very in-depth and well-written, in my opinion. More so than like even a lot of AAA titles to where you don't even know who you're playing, especially for like, well, not to throw shade, but like Tekken, you know, especially latest characters. But so examples include like Boundary, being from like the family of what was it, the arcane arts, and he has like a genealogical kind of power system that his dad also has power, stuff like that. Just from reading the wiki, you have Sherm in terms of making his own fighting style, being a fan of fighting games. You have Sugumi when it comes to wanting to get back and get revenge for losing in a tournament. Like when I was reading it, it was like a lot of lore to each of these characters. So I guess what I'm trying to say, there's a lot of a written story, and it's written as if someone really cares or wants to insert meaning as to why the characters are being involved in the Battle Craze tournament. So was there like a single person who wrote the backstory for the characters, or was it a combination of people for each character?
It was. I want to say that it's mostly me, not to like hog credit, but
no, I mean, it's your game. You were the one who designed all of these characters and even the initial move list. So
yeah, I had these characters bumping around in my head for quite a while. So they went through a lot of like different iterations, different like story beats. So there was always like a baseline as to like what they would be. And when it came to like writing out those bios, I kind of followed like a similar path to the way that like SNK Wiki like lays them out. Like you do have like a lot of backstory for characters that you normally wouldn't even like think twice about, like, you know, Terry, Geese, and even characters like Axel Hawk. Nobody talks about Axel Hawk anymore, but
yeah,
there's still, you know, a story behind there. There's a life that's there.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Sometimes it either is just like a mix of wanting these characters to be like a vehicle for like a certain kind of story, or even just like thinking of stuff on the spot and it just like kind of sticks.
Okay, cool.
The only thing I can contribute is that there are 4 characters in the roster right now who are guest designs, who Akue, Terry, Bernie, and Jane Bain. And so there are a few characters that are outside of Janice's influence, but she has also done a really good job in actually pushing us to really flesh out these characters and make them fit into the world. So I think she's done a really good job at that. So she's very talented at making these characters very interesting characters and diverse cast. Oh, there's 4 different guest characters from 4 different authors. So
Akue is made by VEE. Perry is made by some guy called Dr. Colexo. I don't really know about that guy. Bernie, Jimmy, and Lee were made by Ayasme, Ayamse, and Jane Bain was made by Susie Scattersilk or Maggie Ashley.
Okay, cool. Not to brag or anything, but that was also another question that is answered. Because of how many guest characters were in the game, I was going to ask that because what was the person's name? The swordsman. She's like from the future, and she's like a detective. Yeah. So I saw in her story it was she's made from a guest character, I guess. So or from a guest author. So I was going to ask that question. Good. That's that's what I need to know. I'm going to rewatch this interview and then look some of this stuff up. So, speaking on the story, there's so many organizations, cults, religious themes concerning Necros's origin. And I just want to write down some of this because I find this cool. Like I said, there's when you insert purpose into the characters. So there's so many groups like the HCCOS, like Biocorps, the Reaper Unit Project, the Ultra Wrestling Federation. And again, what I mentioned earlier, the destined family of arcane practitioners and so on. So it seems, there's a lot of story material. So are there any plans to expand the story mode of the game in the future to include more of this lore?
It's definitely something that we're looking into because it would feel like a major letdown to let like all of this kind of like not be told in some way. Like we are, indie developers that only have so many like limited resources, and even like getting it in like a visual novel form, I feel like is, worth it enough for people that are really invested in who these characters are and such.
There are plans to do some form of a story mode there that has like characters actually having dialogue in between fights. Probably nothing more extravagant than that, but something that will definitely give us an opportunity to actually have characters talk more and actually interact more and explain more of their stories. Okay,
that's the answer I was looking for, and great. Even in the non-audio dialogue, I still like Sherm, like when he met what was it, Sugumi? He was like, "Oh man, I saw her on TV. She's famous. I should get her autograph. All right, let's do this." Like, they're really humanizing the characters. It was like, dude, you don't see that in other games in terms of like, I came from worse games in my opinion. So this is surprising to me seeing like, oh wow, like somebody thought about this dialogue, and Sherm seemed like a real person, But if you couldn't tell, Sherm's one of my favorite characters in the game, by the way. So
everybody likes Sherm. He's very likable.
I mean, if you play Battle Craze, you're going to love Sherm or Wallace. Either one of those two is just going to be your favorite character, absolutely.
For sure. Yeah, Wallace is tight too. He's dope. So
time to get paid. Yeah.
And then he has that like, it's like he shoots a gun in terms of like one of his one of his grabs I like his idle stance too. Like I love the animation in this game. We're gonna get to that later. But the next question is in regards to like the sides feature in a game in terms of like the alternate versions of the characters. So the more I played the game, the more I realized sides were almost entirely different characters in terms of the mechanics. The movesets, and even the signature Craze abilities. I personally think it's a unique way, and it prevents characters from feeling stale and with having the ability to create 3 different versions. So I think it's like a unique way to have a character variants within the same character. That makes sense. What made you guys come to the decision to include 3 sides per character?
Scope creep.
So I actually started writing an article about this topic because it is such a bizarrely detailed sort of series of events that led to this happening. The cliff notes of it is that Side L was created sort of as an inspiration of various other fighting games. I was inspired by Guilty Gear XX, and I believe Janice took that inspiration from Blaze Blue. But there's various games that have something like that where you have a character who has the same sprites but a different moveset. And we wanted to do something like that because we just really, really like how you can create new characters without actually making new assets, essentially.
Mhm.
And then a bunch of dumb stuff happened, and then a third side happened by accident, where it was unused content that I snuck into the game as sort of a joke, and then it started coming up because random select in Mugen doesn't allow you to not select secret characters.
Really?
And then we started coming up with ideas for a third side as a joke, and then they started getting coded, and then at one point it was like 1/3 of our roster is a joke at this point, so maybe we should just make it an actual thing.
Yeah. Wow, that's
It got lore and everything. Like, it was like a Jeet but gray, and then I'm just like, okay, what is responsible for these things? And then I made a gray Moyai-headed golem man that shows up, and his wiki page was supposed to be written in Braille, like finding the Reggies in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, and it turned into garbage. So I have to rewrite all of that.
oh, and it's funny because from the player standpoint, it doesn't seem like it was random or a joke at all. Like, because when I'm on the wiki, even like the more outdated ones, I look at Sherm's L side when it comes to evil Sherm, and it says that it's a what if he didn't stop huffing silver. It's so hilarious, dude. Oh god, that character's so funny. But and then you have Robo Sugumi, and there's like backstory to the L side, or to what can be considered more of the alternate sides out of the three. So it's like, oh, everything's like intentionally done here. Wow, this is very set in stone. So just saying, from a player, it seems, this was all smooth sailing, So that's interesting. So in regards to the next part of the question, so for me, primarily when playing this game, I was playing it with my brother, who's not really into fighting games these days, especially not indie fighting games. So needless to say, we differ when it comes to our opinion. So he actually didn't find sides as appealing as I did. So when playing with him, he made a comment saying that he'd prefer if they found a way to combine the styles into one character. So my question for you guys are there any concerns that the size feature may overly complicate the meta of the game?
I'm not sure about the meta, but it has been like a point of discussion about like trying to describe these sides in like very short sentences for like new players to like know what side does what, because they all do like wildly different things depending on the character. Like, you have Boundary side C with like the portal gimmick, and then side L is like you got the dancing swords, and side S is like Shulk's Monado, but without the sword or the back attack or the British accent.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of discussion with that. I give a shout out to Scared Crow and Buster, who are our testers, and we do a lot of the sort of playthrough move list sort of breakdowns, and they do a lot of trying to figure out ways to onboard people. Like Scarecrow right now is making combo videos for each character individually in each side, and he just started with side SG, and he's working on side L now. And we go back and forth in this a whole lot, where we worry about if like getting people to find their character, and we've thought of various different ways, different like tutorializations and character select screen like graphs and descriptions to just try to figure out the best way to get people to find the character that they like. And it has been a bit difficult, and I don't know if we've fully nailed that down yet, but it is something that we do think about a lot, because there are so many characters and so many sides that there's people I've introduced the game to who look at the character select screen and they just immediately, I don't even know like where to even start. And it's like, I can't even recommend certain characters because sometimes their sides will completely change their gameplay. You got Necros, who is a grappler on side C and side L, and then a zoner on side S. and that's sort of intentional. And I'm very, very happy with the amount of characters that we have as a result of that. But at the same time, it is daunting to try to explain everything to everybody. But in terms of balance, we've put more effort than it may even be worth trying to get it to balance, even though at the end of the day, that's sort of a fool's errand with fighting games. There's always going to be something that kind of stands out a little bit. But we've made a serious effort to try, and I think we are at a pretty decent point. We did recently a tournament at Act 7, Alex Alchemy's Act 7, and there was a couple of standout bits, but for the most part, I think it's going over pretty well. Surprisingly so, considering there are 60 characters if you include each side.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was a good answer. Yeah, so I would say I can see from maybe, like I said, critic point of view in terms of like, when you first play the game, there's this different sides and just not an immediate way to tell like what the sides do until you go into the command list. Which obviously shout to Ikeman. Now you can look at the command list versus Mugen. But I did see like on the Mizumi site that you guys like, because I was first looking at the older wiki and then I looked at the Mizumi site and then I saw that what you said, you're making more terse, kind of shorter explanation of the site. So that was like, if I had arrived to the Mizumi site, it would have been much better in terms of onboarding me into what the sides do. But no, yeah, I think that's a good idea in terms of figuring out ways to make it more like, I guess, to onboard the players more, like you mentioned, And personally, I'm a fan of it. I like my brother, so just wanted to put that out there. Yeah. So the next question, I guess this will be more from a coding perspective, and it'll have to do with the Mugen to Ikeman. So what were the pros and cons from like a coding perspective when transitioning the game from Mugen to Ikeman?
It was mostly pros. The only real con was just that certain things didn't work the same, and so you would occasionally bump into something that used to work fine and should work fine, but just Ikeman does it just slightly differently, and he just kind of sneaks in there. But largely, no, Ikeman was just an upgrade for us. The only thing that it really did was just sort of add a little extra time in development to make sure everything had converted over correctly. But no, it was amazing going to because growing up on Mugen, I had never expected in my life to see netcode in Mugen, much less rollback eventually.
No, for sure, yeah.
And then just to see like we were sort of planning on just making it in Mugen and then getting to a certain point and saying like, okay, let's make a new engine so that we can make our own game with rollback or even just netcode in general. And then suddenly, Ikeman rolls around and now we're able to play the game online with each other. And I don't know, it was just sort of a miracle, it seems like, but it was so helpful in getting the game where it is now, is being able to actually play it with people.
Nice, for sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, I guess my next question was, which you kind of already mentioned it, was, so what has been like the rollback functionality experience for players of Battle Craze so far? Like, what has been their feedback?
Pretty decent. I would say that the thing that makes rollback difficult or net play difficult in general with Ikeman is just the port forwarding. Like you have to use Radmin is what most people use. I just port forward, but no one knows how to do that, and I don't blame them. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It is absurd. But whenever, and that's just one of the things that is kind of frustrating, is that you need to have some sort of exterior software to even run netplayed, and that's been a big hassle. Other than that, it's been pretty good. The issues that we've had with it are things like random select doesn't work for some reason, and occasionally it'll disconnect and you have to reconnect again. But other than that, the actual gameplay, once you actually get the game going, I've seen mostly positive reaction to it.
Nice,
So-
nice. Yeah, good to hear. Good to hear. I actually need to try that out one day. I need to, or get more friends to play the game. Hence, this podcast to share it, and especially for those who might be my audience, if I can get one or two to play the game, then that'd be cool.
Yeah. Always helps to spread the word.
For sure. So one of the standout things I've noticed about Battle Craze is like the wide array of different characters, both in their look and in their playstyle. From a player standpoint, it seems that there isn't any limit to how the characters are presented. Just for example, you have like a bipedal 6'6" killer beetle. You have a girl in a rock band who's a descendant from a legendary ninja who fuses ninjutsu with guitar play. Like, I don't know who thought of that, but like I said, just the creativity, the levels of creativity is insane. Anyway, so you have an ancient evil entity in the form of a dragon that dwells in the center of the earth that's been monitoring the progress of humanity. And I don't think anything I said is hyperbolic in terms of the story of, what's his name? Tyrant, I believe.
Yeah, Tyrant.
Yeah. So needless to say, the character roster is very diverse. So was this like an important goal of the development of Battle Craze to feature a unique, atypical set of characters for fans to play?
Absolutely. I have been, juggling this idea since middle school, which was like around 2010. There were a lot of characters that, got into the roster, out of the roster, further fleshed out. Some stuck, some didn't. Like, Reaper is an interesting character because they initially weren't humanoid. They're like weirdly reptilian, and they had like a pizza cutter arm. And I literally changed that just because I was like, hey, Mortal Kombat 9, Cyrax, and Sector make cool like robot noises during their X-rays. What if I made Reaper humanoid?
Interesting.
And the biggest appeal of a fighting game is just the fact that it's the genre that offers like the most playable characters. So you gotta have like that wide and crazy variety of people from all walks of life, human or not, from all corners of the world, whether they, be a wrestler superstar from Puerto Rico or born in a test tube. Like CC.
Yeah. Oh,
like the character select screen is some of the most important in terms of getting someone to play your fighting game. Like the roster that you have determines whether or not somebody will actually enjoy your game. Because if you see a character that immediately appeals to you, you're going to want to play it. I remember Andreas. They created a couple of indie fighting games, and I'm blanking on the name of them now.
Schwarzblitz.
Yeah. They wrote an article where they explained that they weren't really that interested in Battle Craze until they saw Goliath, and they were immediately like, "That's the character for me." And that sort of pull, like I've experienced that with fighting games myself, and I know, I'm an example of someone who did the same thing with ours. Like, you need really, really interesting characters because you need to grab a person's attention. You can't just have dudes, just plain ass dudes. You need something. You need that spice. And even if that doesn't end up being their character that they play, sometimes they'll play them even though they're not even the most compatible with the move list, just because they like the character so much. Like that's a thing that is important. So, and I think really knocks it out of the park with making colorful, vibrant, diverse characters. That there's something there for somebody.
100%. I agree. Go ahead, Janice.
I literally got into Under Night in Birth because Merkava stood out like a sore thumb amongst the roster.
Oh, and is he like he looked like an animal, right? Am I?
Yeah, he looked like a giant snake with the noodle arms, and he's like and shit.
Interesting. Especially what Calexel said was it's funny because that's how I kind of made my community, honestly. Because we were all playing Tekken 7, as in the people of my Discord. and we all hated Tekken 7. But we loved the character Miguel because Tekken historically has had just among, obviously it's more martial arts based, but it's definitely had different characters in that set. And so Miguel is like super tough, super brawny, and he's like a Spanish bar fighter who's trying to seek revenge on Jin for killing his sister. And so this is a character that's not very popular. When you think about Tekken, you typically think of the Mishimas when it comes to Kazuya Mishima, Heihachi, the Bears. But you don't think of this Spanish, the Spanish unorthodox fighter, And so go ahead.
Oh. Well, we would, but we're very different people because I mean Miguel is awesome. Like Tekken is, I played Tekken 3 was my first Tekken, and like Yoshimitsu was the character that like you saw him and it was like, that's the guy, like that's the one that I want to play because he's like do with the sword and it's like a beam sword. It's so cool.
And he has so many different forms, each version, whether it's Soul Calibur or whether it's Tekken.
Right, yeah.
And so, so we formed a kind of a bond when it comes to Miguel. We even called ourselves the Savage Pack because of his stance, the Savage stance, in terms of the word usage of Miguel. And so there was a lot of characters we didn't like to play against, but we like Miguel. And so, like you said about Battle Craze, if there's a wide variety of characters, then you're going to find your guy. And even if the play style isn't, like you said, what typically what you would adopt, then you'd like that character. For me, for Battle Craze, it's funny because, like for Sugumi, for instance, initially when you're just seeing the character select screen, and then I'm seeing this character, and admittedly, I was kind of turned off. I'm like, this character doesn't seem like she belongs in a fighting game just based on her look and stuff like that. Until I played arcade mode with Sherm, and then I lost multiple times to the AI of Sugumi. I'm like, she is a fighter. Like, she could kick your ass. Like, she is tight. And now I love her, you know what I mean? So it was like, I had my initial kind of bias when it comes to looking at the roster. And like, man, this character looks kind of silly. Maybe it's overdoing it, but to me, it's like, if you make a good fighting game and you make interesting characters, it doesn't matter what you think. You're gonna respect it, at least. That's why, in my opinion. So it's funny because every single new character I pick in Battle Craze, it's like, oh, I'm proven wrong. Like, oh wow, that character's actually cool. Oh wow, that's so it's like, 100% agree. It's funny. And even for Tyrant, like he's the first character like I kind of played. Like as soon as I saw him teleport in the air on a throne, I'm like, whoa, like this guy's cool. Like this, and then he does a little flip, and then he hits you with the chair. It's like, yo, and then he has the trident. This dude is amazing,
It's funny that Tekken is brought up quite a bit because I didn't grow up on Tekken. I grew up on Soul Calibur, and I even played like the shitty ones. And Tyrant went through a lot of like different like moveset ideas until I remembered Algol. And also getting whipped by Calexo's Abigail in Street Fighter V. Then I put the two ideas together, and I'm like, this is genius.
Nice. That's good inspirations for sure. Algol, he was so cool. Even though I prefer Soul Calibur 2 on a GameCube, shout out to Link. That's when I first got.
Oh no, I'm definitely a Soul Calibur 2 head because it has Necrid.
Oh, dude, Necrid. Was he made by the comic artist? What was his name?
Todd McFarlane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
My brother told me that Necrid died, and that's why he didn't came back. But I think he lied to me.
He definitely lied. Is he friends with Todd? Like, how did he know? Like, that's funny. The next question: what was your overall goal when just focusing like on the unique Craze abilities? When creating those, how did you want players to feel when like labbing and learning the unique powers for each characters?
For the most part, we wanted like each character to feel distinct, even if there may be like a little bit of overlap. We wanted like every character to have like their thing that like they specialize in. Like a lot of inspiration coming from like Killer Instinct 2013, in a goated game, in trying to give every character like their own little thing that makes them sound like broken on paper.
Makes sense.
I think the way that I've sort of described, or the best way that I can describe it, is that there's sort of a philosophy with the sides, and that side C it's the initial pitch. It's the one that's the most character archetype. Like the grappler is the most grappler, the zoner is the most zoner in side C. Side L is the sort of like, it's sort of like a twist on that original concept. It sort of plays, it's sort of the same end goal, but you get there with different means. And then side S is where we just went as goofy as we possibly could. We tried to come up with something that is sort of not the antithesis of the other sides, but something that doesn't play by the same rules at all. And so we had the most fun and try to do the most gimmicky stuff in those sides. And yeah.
Okay. That was interesting. Yeah, I mean, I had to ask that question because, again, just speaking on the creativity of Battle Craze, it's like, even you guys mentioned Boundary. It's just like, I saw this character, and by the time I'm reaching in terms of trying Boundary, I know this is going to be something interesting about this guy. And so then I see the teleports and the fact that you can set the eye that he can teleport from, and then you can hold it in terms of setting the eye above the character. Then it can go in a certain direction, and then you can come out of that eye, and then you can do a dive kick in like 4 different directions. It's just like, dude, there's always something beyond what I'm used to, you know? So I had to ask like the origin story in terms of what made you decide about the unique Craze abilities. So for the next question, so what is your favorite character that you created in Battle Craze, and what was the primary inspiration that led to their development?
I guess we could like answer this like separately between like a like creative standpoint and like a development standpoint. I probably would have to say that like my favorite characters to make probably were Tsugumi, Sherm, Baxter, and Gabby. Like animating those 3 was like really fun. Like with Sherm, I literally looked at how Street Fighter 2 was animated, and I wanted him to like emulate it because his fighting style is literally just him copying what he's seen in old fighting games. And I wanted a way to show that he was like amateurish, so he was at a lower frame rate. Like coincidentally, like how Miles Morales is at a lower frame rate in the early parts of Into the Spider-Verse. And I didn't make that connection until now.
Nice. That's good.
And like with Baxter and Gabby, I could really like stretch the boundaries of like what a character can do as an attack, because Baxter has those stretchy limbs and Gabby is like a nightmare apparition, so she doesn't really follow the rules of reality, so I could just go full Darkstalkers with it. I guess when it comes to lore, Tsugumi and Gabby are probably like my favorites to think about, mostly because like a part of Tsugumi is like relating to like my own struggles with like the disability that we both have. We're both autistic, and I kind of wanted to like have a story about a character that like kind of learned to go over their shortcomings in like a way that like is healthy and accepting of themselves. And Gabby's lore takes a lot of interesting directions, and it's just like really cool to think about it, but I'm probably not going to spoil too much of it here.
Oh, for sure, yeah. You know, you said enough interesting nuggets, definitely. So
the thing that I think I'm most proud of in terms of designing move lists is where Tyrannia ended up, which is kind of funny because she was the one character where we came up with her alternate identity entirely to make up for the fact that the side used to be an evil clone, and so she was a wrestler. And then whenever it became like, oh, this is just the character again, it's like, why is Justicia doing heel stuff now? Her name implied that she would not be a heel, and she went through a lot of iterations that move list did until we got to the one where it is now, where it's a Tekken stance sort of character in a 2D fighter, where she has like 2 different stances that she jumps in and out of, and has different like overhead low throw mix-ups out of each one, and you can chain them together in a way that builds a negative resource. Like you have sort of like a lot amount of time to use these cancels before you start becoming like stunning yourself, essentially. And there's a lot of really weird ideas that came together to make something that I find really, really fun and is easily my favorite character to play. And I also want to give a shout out to Side-S Gabby, who is a character who has a different move list depending on which side she's facing. So if she jumps over the opponent or she switches sides with the opponent, her move list becomes a zoner archetype.
Wow.
And you have to play around the idea of where you are on the screen in order to determine what your moves are, or use resources to manage which side you're using. And that ended up being a lot of fun to actually implement and play. So pretty happy with that as well.
Yeah, the innovation I'm hearing, like I might play this game after this interview even more. Just the techniques and stuff. Let me see here. All right, so for the next question, which we're really getting through this, we have like 3 more questions left, or 4.
Hell yeah.
So this one will be more of a critique, but I'm interested to hear what you guys say about this. So this question deals with potential critics to the art style, especially for an audience that may enjoy classic 2D arcade fighting games, but prefer a more polished look, like say a Marvel vs. Capcom collection can give them if they were to play, a game within that. So I think it's fair to say that it can be a turnoff to maybe a casual FGC audience to see a game that doesn't have the comparable color depth, lighting, or anatomy as other current 2D fighters. So what would you say to a potential critic that feels this way to appeal to them as to why they should play your game?
I'm not entirely sure how to answer this other than like, I know that explaining like why we decided to do it probably wouldn't be enough because I'm like the only one that does like the animation and it does like take its toll. And if we did add more detail like shading, anti-aliasing, and like made it like a CPS2 game, then I don't think we really would be at the spot where we are now in development.
I remember very early on, Janice showed me a sprite. It was like an Ajit sprite using, I think, an old design that was shaded and stylized and more of, I think, an Akatsuki Blitzcamp style sprite. Mm-hmm. And it looked really, really nice. But that's not a thing that you can do as one person and then develop as many graphics as she has over the course of this game. And I feel like as bad as it is that my answer is really just an excuse, like, we're a team of roughly 6 or 7 people with one person doing graphics. And the person doing those graphics churns out thousands of these sprites, and they're well animated, and she obviously takes a lot of inspiration from cartoons. And so it is in a way stylized, but also it's just practical. It is just, if we did something more ambitious than that, we would not have the game that we do. We would not have a game with 20 unique characters with, 3 different sides each if we were so worried about the graphics. It's sort of this, we are in that indie game space where you have to sort of accept that, like, you're not going to get the best looking games because it has quite literally zero money put into it. But like, it is definitely not without passion and without care. It is not something that you should mistake for indifference or laziness. It is just it is the way that it is.
Okay. Okay, good. Definitely good response. So I have to say that with leaving my opinion out, because for me it's funny because I think I actually enjoy the look of this game more than most newcomers to the game, like such as obviously, for example, my brother, who has more of a critical look in terms of how it looks. But for me, especially, like, I'm also like a hobbyist 2D animator, even though I don't do sprite work, but I've done just like kind of anime style character animations and stuff. So what I think is most well done personally is like the timing of the animation and like the keyframes. I can tell that there's like there's definitely skill there, So a lot of other games, like to me, have like a bigger budget and they may look better graphically, but the animation isn't as good in the context of like good fighting game animation. So for me, looking at the timing of the animation, I think this game looks great to me, you know?
I was making Battle Craze like around the time that I was attending college, where I was learning animation, and even then, a lot of the stuff that I picked up was mostly from like animation that I used to watch growing up as well, and also, you know, looking at old fighting games too. Like, I would probably say that like some of my like animation influences are probably like mostly from like CPS2, like mainly Darkstalkers, with the way that they have like good key posing and like fluid in betweens.
Okay. No, yeah, even though without you saying that, like I can't tell directly where the inspiration is from, I can tell that it's from a good source. So it doesn't surprise me that you're saying, you know, from Darkstalkers, from CPS 2 games and stuff like that, older alphas. So that's definitely cool. Yeah. And lastly, let me pull up maybe like the wiki or whatnot.
I'm surprised that the wiki is still up after all of these years.
Oh yeah, we haven't touched that in quite a while. We started development on what was it? Mizumi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got about halfway finished on that.
Yeah, we were gonna we had somebody working on a website for like general info about the game, and then we were also like collaborating with some other players to make a Mizumi for the more like technical data of everything.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And you guys actually just answered one of the questions. So cool. That's
Excellent.
One less one. But
I have the gift of prophecy.
No, but yeah, just like the main character, Ajit, right? Can he see into the future?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So so let me just kind of finalize that question in terms of from the site. So do you guys plan on, because I know for the Mizumi site, it has like the most up to date when it comes to like the tech and the craze tactics and like the changes, but for like the older wikis, I saw that more of the story lore is on like some of the older ones. So do you guys plan on like making a comprehensive site when it comes to a place you can go to and then find out all the information about Battle Craze?
Yes, we were planning on porting over to everything to that website that is still a work in progress that I mentioned a bit earlier.
Yeah, we do. My friend Bet Keep helped make a site for us, and we need to get together to finalize a part of it. But we do have something on the back burner of condensing all this information into one place. At least the anything that isn't more detailed in gameplay, like the Mizumi is more for the in-depth stuff and the frame data and all that jazz, and the website will be a more beginner guide to the game and its lore.
All right, so I can skip the question about the sites because you already mentioned about the Mizumi wiki.
Yep.
So this next question is going to deal with well, let me just say it. So when I beat the arcade mode, I saw a message that you guys have plans to bring the game to a bigger engine. So that has me curious. Do you guys plan to port the game to a bigger platform like a GOG or a Steam?
Yes.
Yes, we do plan to have a Steam release. We're in the development of a game maker engine, or at least I'm in the process of making my own engine for using Game Maker Studio 2. And I've been posting updates about it infrequently on my Blue Sky, but it's something we started last month, I think. So it's still kind of getting off the ground, but we're finishing. We finished developing anything for Ikeman. Anything that we do for Ikeman is going to be just bug fixes in addressing issues. But from there on, we are trying to make something of our own, something that is a little more stable with the netcode, better with controllers, because I've heard a lot of issues with Ikeman and different people's controllers, and hopefully allow us to add some more modes. So
For
look
sure.
forward to that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. That's something I love especially. And yeah, for me, even Ikeman, obviously it goes without saying that there's so much more quality of life features that Ikeman can do. Obviously, you know more than me as a coder, and me, I'm just an end user. But like for Ikeman, one thing that's preventing me from like switching all of my Mugen roster to Ikeman is the fact that the controls aren't as like tight and intact as it is in Mugen. To where if you do like two separate, if you do two successive buttons really quickly, then sometimes it doesn't register this is the second button. And they fixed that over the course of like the updates to Ikeman Go, but especially like older Ikeman Go builds and Ikeman Plus, like there was a point to where you couldn't really do supers using like a down forward motion. But even so, they fixed that, but I can still kind of tell that it doesn't register like buttons as quickly as Mugen does when you press it like two different buttons successively. It's hard to explain. And obviously, this is not you guys' fault. It's just the Ikeman build.
Yeah,
that's something to where and obviously the other thing, which now this is more of a Mugen conversation, but the other thing is the fact that Ikeman doesn't have the stage fit, so where you can't. If you have like 16:9 ratio for your Ikeman, then it's just gonna like zoom in the stage and zoom in your characters. Versus Mugen, you could, it will have the black border, so you can make 16:9 stages to fill that out. So you can have the characters zoomed out more. So when they fix those two things, I'm fully being a refugee and coming to Ikeman. Because obviously there's the amount of screen packs, the amount of modes you can do, even though it's still comparable to Ikeman, so or Mugen, so it'll be better for you guys, like you just mentioned, in terms of the game maker and putting it on different platforms. You can do way more. So yeah, that's just my personal comments when it comes to that. So let me talk about the next question. And you kind of already mentioned this. This might be one you already answered too. This is there's only two more questions left, so this is one out of the two. So I had to throw in a question about my boy Sherm Usagi. I may have.
Yeah.
So.
Sure.
Oh yeah. I was gonna ask about that too. Actually, so hold off on the impersonations. 'Cause I'm gonna ask about that.
All right, Sherm, can you just step back a bit? I need to answer this first. Thank you. Okay.
Wow, that's awful. So he's one of the dopest Shotos, like I mentioned earlier. The coolest Shoto inspired characters I've played with, and he's interesting because obviously you guys know about this more than me, but he's beyond like just a clone of Dan, but rather he seems to be a combination of the most popular elements of Street Fighter mechanics. I mean, he's got the typical fireball, he's got the hurricane kick, dragon punch, the things you'd expect, but he also has like Gao's charge inputs on his, I guess the C side, or the default side, and he has like Gao's gravity defying kind of medium kick. You know what I mean? When he guys go up like that. So okay,
rotate the sprite. Perfect.
Yeah, and so it's like, oh yeah, that's what it says on like the wiki, doesn't it? I think, or the move list.
That's the move list name, yeah.
So I can see what you guys are doing. I can see. Yeah. And so it's like, so not to mention he has Dan's taunt supers, which oh man, that's what I love that stuff. And so obviously the taunt to where you can down our quarter circle back taunt, quarter circle forward taunt, then he could do it out of his Craze technique. And then it's an attack just like when people program Dan and know what they're doing, they'll make it like what's the saying? Potts. I think Potts.
Oh yeah.
His Dan, you can do like an EX taunt, and then you can use it as like a launcher or something. But just little part of life stuff like that, you know. So, and obviously, like just a genuinely funny character from his animations to his voice acting. And he always makes me laugh. So my question was, what is the origin story of creating Sherm Usagi? And like I said, you kind of already answered that, but just throw in any extra information you want to.
I guess some of the more in-depth part is like he came about as just like some doodle, as like a parody of like Ryu and other Shoto clones. Because like back in middle school, I was like, or in that phase where I was like, popular things suck. I'm a SNK fan, even though I was playing Marvel 3 around that time. I think it was just like I hate Street Fighter at that point, but he just kind of became like an endearing character that stuck around and was goofy, and some of the edges were like sanded off over time, so he's not a gooner anymore. But I remember showing like one of the concepts to like one of my high school friends, like when we were like nearly getting done with high school, and I think somebody asked, why is he blue? And I don't know why I made his skin blue. His outfit colors come from like an alternate color that Chun-Li had in Third Strike. And I think we just both came to the conclusion that he was a drug addict, and he was huffing silver, which does give you a condition that changes your skin to blue.
I looked that up.
I gave him Chip Zanoff's backstory, where he was saved by some guy, and he decided to take up martial arts, and yeah.
Interesting.
Sherm's move list was always very interesting because it was just sort of proposed as like it's Ryu but he's charge motions, and I think that's I think it's a good example of how a very simple idea became fleshed out into something that we could not have anticipated when we started. Like the idea of just it's just Shoto Colombo with charge motions. And then we got to the point where it's like, well, what's the benefit of doing a charge fireball? And then it was just like, well, you could make it like Guile. And then we just did that. And so it became a sonic boom.
Yeah.
But it was very much a learning experience for me because there was a lot of things about fighting games that I knew were a thing, but I didn't really understand why they were the way they were. Like I didn't understand why Guile is the way that he is. And through making characters like Sherm, I actually learned like why things are the way that they are, like what makes Sonic Boom good, what makes Flash Kick good, and what a character who has those moves typically does with their move list. And it ended up coming together really, really well. But it was a lot of trial and error to get there as well.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, there could be an entire podcast on Sherm. There is like I have so much to say, but for audiences who are watching this or watch the recording on YouTube and who don't know what I'm talking about, I would highly recommend you to play Battle Craze just because of Sherm and pick him up. And I also feel like he serves as a good introduction to Battle Craze because he has familiar moves. In terms of if you come from a Street Fighter, then you know like the basic mechanics. If you played any Shoto or Guile or Chun-Li, in terms of like I say, he seems like a compilation in my opinion. But just in terms of his humor, even like his air grab when he tries to grab you and then he breaks his back, and his normal grabs on the ground to where he tries to pull you and then he points to something and then he pushes you. Obviously he carries the sack like Ryu, but it has like the anime body pillow, like from Chip's backstory, which I didn't know, which I still plan on doing like an entire Guilty Gear run. Started from Guilty Gear X on the PlayStation and ending on Strive. So I'm still unfamiliar about the backstory to that series. I just have like Accent Core Plus, and I play Strive a bit when it comes to Giovanni, however you say it. But
Giovanna.
Yeah. So I still plan on doing that. But yeah, like it's cool how the references you're saying is from all different corners of the galaxy of fighting games, from King of Fighters to Guilty Gear to, you mentioned Akatsuki Bliss Camp and the art style of that, and Under Night, and so that's pretty awesome. But yeah, like I said, for fans who are unfamiliar, who just definitely play Battle Craze, it'll definitely be linked in the description when it comes to you can try it out. It's on PC. You can run it on anything, so don't give me that excuse. And like I said, for Sherm, he's just genuinely funny. And also, even there's one thing I want to say about like one is his ending animation. Then he has like the Ryu pose, and then the flower goes on his face. It's just like, dude, this is so great. And like I said, it could be an entire podcast, so I need to get off of this. But for Sherm, even like when other people talk about him, like who's the person who's running Battle Craze? What's her name? Isabella, I believe.
Yeah, Isabella.
Yeah, and just when it comes to Ajit and Sugumi, they don't talk about Sherm at least in terms of the dialogue. Like, oh, he's a joke, like on some dance stuff. Like they say, oh no, he has an unorthodox fighting style, but he has potential, you know? So it's like, I like how he's still taken a bit seriously, you know? So yeah, my rant over.
People just being nice to him.
Or yeah, that could be it. But so and then the next question, which has to do with the voice acting I was hearing from the voice actor, is yeah, I see that Sherm was voiced by you, Janice. So I have to say, first off, obviously great voice acting job, definitely funny. So was this your first time voice acting? And if so, what was like something you took away from voice acting a fighting game character?
This is like the first time that I provided my voice for something like more professional, I guess. Like, it was originally supposed to go to my brother, but I was just like a little bit dissatisfied with like how it came out. And I just realized, like, oh, if you want to get the results that you want, then why don't you try it yourself? And I just kind of ended up doing it like myself. I was a part of an audio engineering class that only had one other person in my last semester of college, and I took that opportunity to use the recording booth to redo Sherm's voice lines in a more professional setting, so it's, you know, crystal clear, add some new lines and whatnot. I actually learned a little bit about vocal control because at some point in my life, I kind of wanted to like have better vocal control because, you know, I'm like transitioning, I'm on hormones. I wanted to make myself sound a little bit more feminine at the time, and I have a better control of like how my throat works, how it can make that pitch like this.
Wow. Great. Oh, we'll go ahead. Sorry.
Am I allowed to answer this question because I did also voice a character in the game?
Oh yeah, you did.
I didn't know that, but yeah, go ahead.
So there was, that was sort of a last minute deal where we made the evil version of Reaper, Q Reaper beta, and I was just like, you know what? Voice acting, that sounds easy. I can totally do that. I can provide a voice for a character. And they said like, yeah, sure, if you want to. And then they're like, just do your best impression. And then I did a recording session, and I just did my best to sound like not important from the hatred. Just sound evil. And it was terrible, and I hated it, and I never want to do it again. But no, it was a lot of fun, but it is way more difficult than I could have expected. Like to put on a voice and to keep that the same personality up through just hundreds of lines and hundreds of line ratings. It's I had a lot more respect for VAs after I did that. It's not easy work.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm also responsible for doing vocal direction for Battle Craze, as well as V, who organized a lot of it together using Casting Call Club, and she's been a ton of help. Donate to her Ko-fi if you can; she needs it. And also shout outs to some of our amazing voice actors, like V herself as Tyrant. Shout outs to Trent, who voiced Baxter. Shout outs to Su Ling Chan as Sugumi too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Shout outs to everybody. Everybody did an excellent job.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you guys for all those links, like the Ko-fi link, the link to the article you mentioned, and I'm going to put it on the YouTube for sure. I guess this last question. I didn't think I did to it, but you know, you guys have been awesome guests, and you know, so well, it's just kind of like I guess maybe it's an Easter egg, but so there's like this Coliseum stage that's not selectable in the stage select list. It has like a red sky and like a dark blue background. And also there's like 3 ominous silhouettes in the back. And the music is like very not upbeat. Let me say that. And so what can I get any idea what the state are, who these 3 silhouettes are in the background?
No comment.
Or is that NDA'd?
Is it not selectable? Did I screw something up? selectable.
I didn't
Uh-oh.
see it. Maybe it could be me, but I will. That's it could be me, but I didn't see it when I tried like on training mode. Yeah, I could be mistaken, but that's the state I was looking for. Was I just wanted to see who these characters were again, and I actually kind of like the soundtrack. You know, the little ominous soundtrack. But I mean, it could be me. I don't know. But,
No, I guess I guess we'll keep in tight lid about that one. Which I mean, I don't know anything about it. I mean, 100%. I think you know the lore of this game better than I do at this point, which is kind of sad.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that's for something. That's why I had to like. I feel like 2 or 3 of my questions were lore related because that's what I love about fighting games. And I not hate, but I extremely dislike fighting games to where I don't know who I'm playing or they just feel like concepts versus an actual person. So, and obviously it doesn't take much. You don't even like, obviously, I think much of Battle Craze is more kind of related to the older games because sometimes you wouldn't have the story in the game. You'd read, you read it in like the pamphlet or you read it in a wiki, but as long as it's somewhere, then I can go to a secondary location and see, man, this character Sherm is cool. I wonder, why he's participating. So that it was well satiated for somebody of my kind of taste, in my opinion. So that's all the questions I had. And obviously, I'm new to podcasting, so usually people have like closing thoughts or they'll ask, okay, so what, but I don't really have anything. So this is off the hip. I mean, off the cuff.
Right.
So what's like the future of Battle Craze in terms of content? Do you guys have new characters in the pipeline or whatnot?
Yeah, we're working on some stuff. I don't like over-promising things, but given that I actually have been putting tangible work into something that you may or may not have seen, like, teased accidentally, we are planning on new characters for the Steam release, because we're planning on putting, like, all of the new stuff into that and not Ikeman. You can see more of it if you subscribe to my Patreon, where I try to aim for weekly updates about that, and other bonuses and perks.
Okay.
I'll be mentioning, I want to try to catalog the development of the Game Maker engine. I think I'm just doing that on Blue Sky. Which, is Dr. Calixto Blue Sky. You can find me there. I apparently wasn't supposed to release a screenshot featuring the new character that just got finished being sprited, but I did. So yeah, we're definitely working on at least one. At the very, and we're I can at least say that we're going to do at least a couple more, and they'll be featured in the main version of the Steam release sometime in the future, which may be a bit farther down the road, but it is coming, and that is what we're working on right now.
Okay, so yeah, my plan right now is to go ahead and head to Blue Sky, follow you, and let me see the screenshot. No, I'm going to follow Blue Sky after this for sure. There's going to be a lot of links underneath. So no, that's good to hear. And now that's the end. So thanks guys for coming on, but yeah, that's all I got, guys. Thanks for tuning in. This was super inspirational. Now I want to play Mugen, I want to play Battle Craze, I want to play and many other games, like, so I feel like if they're like me and you guys, they're fans of fighting games and they're tuning in, then it will inspire them to play or make fighting games, which is ultimately the goal. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you guys later.
Thank you very much for having us.
For sure.
Play Battle Craze.
Play Battle Craze.